This is the Slots and Sockets Podcast, episode number 85. I am one of your hosts, IRD Moose, and my partner in crime. Happy Monday, Turbo. How you doing today?
Doing good. It's been a busy week. BDX land and the traveling back and forth is not the easiest, but it's not horrible.
So did you fly?
Did.
No, so you took the minis for him.
Yeah, I did. I took the little box, which worked out great. No issues there.
Good.
So, yeah, it was most excellent. No issues whatsoever. Everything went great. So
it did. Speaking of great, right after we recorded our show, literally the next day, Valve gave us some great news. Gaben delivered. Praise be.
So, and it's interesting. We've had enough time for people to kind of see kind of what a lot of this is.
Yep.
And we've had a lot of people kind of doing some research on this, and so. But the notion is that Valve is going to have a new set of hardware. Some new, some refresh, and some updates. Yep. So let's kind of go through some of these because some of these are noteworthy. So Valve Index is getting a refresh, and it's going to be basically it's going to be it's called Steam Frame.
Yep.
Okay.
It's got a refresh name too.
It's got a refreshed name.
And the form factor is a lot like what we have in the current generation headsets from Meta. I almost said Oculus because I'm so used to calling them Oculus, but it's a lot like the current generation stuff where it's using inside-out tracking. The headset itself is a full-blown system so that it can run games locally, and they also have some integrations that would allow you to use it with your desktop PC or some of their other upcoming products.
Yes. So, and now we don't have pricing for a lot of these. We have an interesting idea, but the notion with the Steam Frame is it an ARM-based system built into it that's not only used for the tracking but for the graphics.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be interesting to see what the support is, because this is obviously a distinct change from what we have with the Valve Index. The other interesting thing here is that this is a sizable resolution bump between the Valve Index and the Frame. So it will be very interesting to see the performance of this. But I do believe you're probably going to, because this is Snapdragon 8 on the processor. And then let's see, what did they say? 2160 by 2160 per eye and 144 hertz. My guess is the 144 hertz is probably going to be FSR. Considering. But they don't say anything about graphics in the actual documentation.
Using Snapdragon's probably going to use graphics that's on the SoC. But one of the things they did note is that it's meant to also work with the other devices that they're launching and also normal desktop PCs. So you kind of get the best of both worlds out of that.
Yeah.
And one of the things they announced too is that they will have a wireless dongle for it. So you don't have to plug it in hardwired to your PC. You're not shackled to it.
The question will be, how does latency work? Okay, because that's a concern. Especially when you have sensors in the device. We've seen some latency issues, but Valve's been pretty good with their hardware so far. I mean, I don't think we've had a real miss with hardware. There have been hardware that hasn't just sold well. I think it's because it's maybe not hit the mark as far as what the community was looking for. Steam Frame will be nice because, in all honesty, it's a big name and bringing a new piece into VR. It will be interesting to see if they can continue to kind of keep pushing the VR narrative. Because part of the issues that I have with VR, it's the lack of support that we have here with VR. So what that looks like long term, that's a great question. Alongside with the Steam Frame is the new version of Steam Controller. And that one, look, this is going to be, it kind of is a little bit closer to an Xbox-ish style, but with 2 touchpads.
They're basically making it the Steam Deck without the screen in the middle. That's what it looks a lot like to me. Because, I mean, if you take a look at the Steam Deck and the stick and controller scheme here is very similar to what they've got on the controller. So you got the thumb pads here that act as your mouse and all that. And I've been playing with this a lot. Like I've been doing Mega Bonk like a fiend, and I love this thing. I don't know why I didn't get one before.
So that's very interesting. The Steam controller was fairly well received, but I think that there were the negative feedback on the original was it was more touchpad centric, and this feels like it's going to be more thumb pad with touchpads. So I think it's going to be flipping the narrative around a little bit, especially on the ergonomics.
Yeah. I think with the original controller, because I also have one of those, one of the big drawbacks is they were trying too hard to make it more like a mouse and keyboard held in one hand. And so the thumb pads acted more like a trackball where they had some inertia, and it was really, really hard to get a feel for it. I know there are people who absolutely love it, but I struggled with it. And then, of course, I went back to the Xbox controllers just because they work better for me. But it wasn't a bad controller. It's just I didn't care for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last, then this is new. So those are refreshes. So Frame is a refresh of Valve Index controller. This is arguably controller 2.0. No news on Steam Deck. We feel like we've got that one relatively new. So I think this cycle is more on the Steam machine, and that's the new product this time around. And basically, this is a micro ITX machine that's supposed to set up on a desk and or next to a PC and replace a console. And really interesting. It's got some interesting specs. So Zen 4 APU. So 6 core 12 thread, 30-watt CPU. That's going to be more than enough for on the CPU side. And then Radeon RDNA 3 with 28 CUs. This is going to line fairly close to a 9600 M. Okay.
9600 M.
7600 XT.
No, I was thinking more along the lines of 6800 because it's Zen 3, which would be 70s, which that would be roughly a 7600 M if the CU count is right. It's a little bit below because it's 28, not 32.
3, which is 7000 series.
Right.
So it's going to be a 7600 M.
Yeah.
So in 28 CUs is doable. This looks really good. This is going to be something that we expect to do. I mean, I think 4K, probably 60 is the target. I'm guessing.
with a lot of
Um,
upscaling. I would say 4K
exactly.
60, but the way consoles do it. So it's not
Yeah,
actually 4K. It's FSR'd 4K.
exactly. Um, so, but you know, 16 gigs of DDR5 and 8 gigs of GDDR6. So that lines in well.
Mm-hmm.
Considering this will be, Steam OS, so it's Linux based, the system usage is going to be minimal because you're only going to use services that you're going to need. Steam will do a fairly decent job of maximizing your system usage.
Yeah.
And I think 8 on that, again on the same side, is probably is going to be okay. Um, it will be interesting to see if this sells well, if there is a refreshed version with maybe a stronger GPU, that comes in, like a Steam Machine Ultra or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But it's going to have a 512 or a 2 terabyte NVMe. Okay. And then expandable through a high speed micro SD. So I'm guessing that the 512 NVMe is probably not going to be super popular because, I mean, at 512 with game sizes,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see that being and selling really well.
Yeah.
Um,
That I actually had the same thought process when I picked up my Steam Deck. Is like, well, 512, that would get me 5, 6 games max. So might as well go with 1 terabyte.
yep.
You know?
Now the only downside that I really, so up to there, everything has been really just fine.
Yeah.
The only downside I have with Steam Machine is some limited connectivity. On the front of the device, you get 2 USB-As. On the back, you get 2 more USB-As and a C. That's it. So I don't know necessarily if you're going to be able to have tons and tons of devices, or you might have to start looking at, maybe, um, hubs or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Then it's
Which,
got an Ethernet cable, power connector, HDMI, and display port.
yeah, and I mean, for consoles, that's kind of standard. A lot consoles these days don't really have a whole lot of USB ports. And the fact that it includes both A and C is pretty nice. Um, I don't know very many people plug that much into their console outside of network and display output, really. I mean, because the controllers are all wireless, and uh, you know, I could see it having a potential use case for expanded storage, where you get one of those little dock connectors that lets you put an NVMe drive on USB-C. Um, and that might actually be a better route to go rather than doing the SD card deal, but that's if that supports it. Um, but yeah, I think the form factor, the layout of the Gabe Cube as it's come to be known is I think it's right where people want it to be, and the market will let us know if it is a solid product and good competition for Sony and Microsoft. Because I mean, with what
So
they've done with the Steam Deck, it's been surprisingly good.
look,
And they're
the
taking that
honest
same that competence over to effectively micro desktops.
the honest truth is that Steam has grown massively in the last 10-15 years.
Hmm.
The user base has grown tremendously. PC gaming, okay, has absolutely grown, and from a percentage, probably has grown far more than anything else we've seen in
Yeah.
the last 10 years. Now, with that being said, you have these people who have these volumes, and you know I think this is may come across as some competition, because the honest truth is, um, you know, it's our understanding that this is a Zen 4 and RDNA 3, not current generation, stuff. This isn't like earth shattering specs in any which way, shape, or form here.
No, I
Okay.
mean these are definitely bargain bin specs. I
But
honestly get the feeling that Valve went to AMD and was like, "Hey, so you guys got a
what's
huge
on the
number of
shelf?
chips you want to
No.
offload?"
What's on the shelf? Well, what
Yeah.
can we get a deal on? I think that's, and you know what? I think it's smart for them to do this
Oh, I
because
agree.
the cost of doing that is very, it's far better. Now, with that being said, um, this will kind of tempt to see if people buy these. But I'll say this: at 6-inch cube, this is going to be a very interesting usefulness here,
Mm-hmm.
because the notion that you'll be able to have your whole Steam frame or your Steam library downloadable,
Mm-hmm.
from my perspective as a land box, this is a no-brainer.
Yep.
I mean, this is throw this together, give it to a kid, keyboard and mouse, and as long as you have a screen, your kid's good to go.
Yep.
Um,
Well,
and
and I think this is what they were going for initially with their stream box too, because you remember back
yeah,
in 2015 they had that little stream box. Yet another Valve thing that I bought. Got it for $5, worth the money. But if you've got a game that you want to play in higher quality, let's say you do have it all hooked up to a 4K TV that's, all the fancy features, and you're like, well, okay, I've got my big honking gaming desktop in the other room, but I don't want to lug it out. Steam streaming.
now they didn't say anything about this in any of the specifications or how to use this device.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the question I'll have is, you know, is it something that you will be able to stream to?
I would be surprised if you couldn't, because you can. I can stream to my Steam Deck. I could stream to any from my desktop to any PC on my network that's loading Steam too. So,
I,
if they
I
don't
really,
include it, that's going to be a miss.
I really think just looking at this, um, we were talking about this PlayStation PS5 Pro. Um, I think we're seeing the end of Xbox hardware,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Steam Machine is probably a direct competitor more to Xbox than PlayStation.
Yeah.
But if I was Sony, I would be very concerned about this because they own so much of the store that you can't just ignore.
Mm-hmm.
If you're selling to PC gamers, that's where you're having to sell it. And so they've got to play nice with Valve. I think everyone needs to play nice with Valve at this point because they are the preferred store.
Yep.
They are the preferred marketplace.
Now,
Um,
with that said, do you think somebody like Epic is going to decide to finally start playing nice and allow the Epic Fail Store to appear on things like the Steam Deck and your Steam Box? Or do you think they're going to play yeah, you can't play our games and
well, I
miss
mean,
out?
these are going to be, these devices are not going to get access to those titles unless it's through the Steam, anything through the Steam store.
Yeah.
Now, one would argue you could buy a Steam machine, and put Windows on it, and
Right.
then get access to the Epic Store. So yes, but I would also make the argument you're going to lose system resources and performance by doing that. Um, I don't see the usefulness of doing that,
Right.
but
I
you
was
could.
thinking doing it natively in Steam OS because you can install non-Steam apps on Steam OS.
Does
Um,
Epic have a Valve store
Not
or
yet.
a Linux store?
Not yet. They used to support Linux. Wow, words are hard today. Linux, good grief. Yeah, they used to support Linux directly on disk with Unreal Tournament, and they moved away from that with I think it was Unreal Engine 5. They stopped what Unreal Engine 4 was the last one that included Linux support natively.
Yeah. So a lot of
Yeah.
interesting good news from hardware. Now,
Sure.
the between the lines release that they have soft said there's going to be a Steam OS. They've made it very clear.
Yeah.
There will be a Steam OS. You can install it. It will run. It will run on current machines, and as long as it has Linux drivers and support from Linux, you can run it. So the question is that I'd make the argument you could probably do the same right now with a build from like Bazite, because it's roughly the same underlayment, and it's still going to be running Steam.
Yep.
Kind of interesting thought there. So you could start seeing some of these Steam machines, clones coming with higher specs. Look, the Steam OS I think is really a push, because again, it seems like Steam is really kind of making a push after Microsoft more than anything else. Going after the Xbox, lack of hardware updates. Microsoft doesn't seem like they're gonna do anything about making new hardware, or at least in the next 2-3 years. And I think, the Steam OS is a direct, to be honest, it's a throwdown to say we're done. And gamers are done with Windows. Windows 11 is not good.
Nope.
It is straight up bad, and gamers don't want it.
And they're making it worse all the time.
I think if you came out, if Steam can push out this and have it be a positive experience and push this, the only thing that you're really losing out from a gaming PC is some of these titles that are not on Linux. And if you're going to continue to have more and more sales of Steam machines and Steam hardware running Linux, I'm going to throw it out there that I think this could push more and more people into doing Linux support.
Yeah.
Battlefield is not going to be on Linux, and Call of Duty is not.
But they may still run, and because that's the thing, is you don't necessarily need to directly support Linux anymore, because some of the games I'm running on my Steam Deck don't even have Linux ports. Like, you can't load F1 2021 on Linux without Steam doing the translation layer for you. And the funny thing is, Steam doing the translation layer is still more efficient to translate from Windows calls to Linux calls than it is to run the game natively in Windows. Which, I mean, come on. So, I mean, it is possible. The question is whether or not companies like EA and Epic and Ubisoft and all these other game developers are willing to support it. Because
it seems like a lot of the roadblocks come back to anti-cheat.
Yeah, exactly. And
I mean, Battlefield 6 is anti-cheat. They have their own proprietary one. You have to turn on secure boots.
Yep.
I would expect that C machines would be secure booted. I don't have a reason why they wouldn't be. But
right.
Two, that would mean that they would have to have some form of Javelin to have code for Linux.
Yep. And if it's kernel level anti-cheat, I ain't touching it. I don't care how popular the game is. I don't care how fun it is. If I find out a game has kernel level anti-cheat, I don't buy it, or I get a refund. Because I don't want that crap in my system. I don't want game developers giving their executives warm and fuzzies just to put their fingers into my system like a virus does.
Okay.
So that's another reason. That's another good reason to switch to Linux, because kernel level anti-cheat doesn't work there. They can't get in. So, it's both a freeing environment and a restricting environment to potential bad actors. So I'm all for it. And yeah, I really hope that this becomes a wave of change in gaming that very likely could be a positive thing going forward. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Speaking, so now that's the big. Now the real question is pricing. We were talking about this before, and a lot of people have noticed that RAM and SSD prices are
Oof.
shooting up. So
They're
I'm
yeah.
interested to see. We don't have pricing for any of these devices. So no pricing for Steam controller, Steam frame, or Steam machine. I would guess that if they haven't, they probably are trying to work to lock down supply at a specific and work on some contracts for supply because they're going to need it.
Mhm.
That's probably already done before they did this. Price wise, I don't know. I mean, Steam controller, I think a controller should be about $50.
Yeah.
That's my guess. Steam machine with these specs. I mean, the thing is that this is not killer specs. This is not like PlayStation 5 rivaling specs.
Mhm.
Um, so from my just really, really rough guess, I really think this probably needs to be 349 to 400.
Hmm.
Um, I just see that that's where the value segment is.
Yeah.
I would be hard pressed to go higher. If this comes out substantially higher than that, I don't see the value in that because the graphics card in that is not current gen. It's it's one gen behind.
Mhm.
The processor 6 core 12 thread is a decent processor. I don't expect it to be X3D. It would cost too much money to if you're trying to get this into a budget. Um, and everything else here just seems. I think it's good. I would not say that from a hardware perspective, this was viewed as great.
Yeah.
I would think that this is good. Um, if you had a 1080p TV, this would be perfect for a 1080p TV.
Yep.
And I think that for a lot of games in the Steam library, I think there's a lot of games you could run at high settings. But at 4K, I think you're probably looking at medium settings with DLS, with either DLS or with FSR. Actually, not
Mhm.
DLSS because they're. But I just think that's where it needs to be.
Yeah, I'm
I think
inclined to
that
agree.
I think for couch gamers, I think that's fine. I will be buying one of these just to kind of get eyes and play with. I do see the the benefit of being able to do this type of thing, especially for me with kids and everything else. It would be
Mhm.
great to be able to throw this over and have a Steam machine in front of a TV and to introduce PC gaming to my kids in a different aspect
Yep.
outside. Because here's the thing, the disruption is really going to come from they're not going to charge for online services from Steam. They're
Yeah.
happy to just get you to buy, hardware for them and make a profit, and then two, buy games at a profit, regardless if they make them. It'll be interesting to see if Microsoft and Sony feel a desire or a need to scale back or not even charge for online services. I'm
Right.
surprised even to this day that people pay for online gaming from a console perspective. I've never
Mhm.
paid for a subscription to those, never will. Um, and this could be the start of maybe some changes there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think that would be a very good thing. I think from if I were to guess at the price for the Steam machine, um, I would not be surprised if it came out at $4.99. I don't think that would be a particularly good price. I think 450 would be really pushing it hard. Um, but just kind of given the way the market's shaking out and, you know, the way everything's going, I think it would be safe to, or I think it would be unsurprising if it came out at $500 just for the console. But with that said, we've had some more issues with AMD drivers and end of life chips.
So yeah, we had this conversation a couple weeks ago, and one thing we've just kind of, because this is firsthand experience. um you have a number of these laptops that use the 6800M, the 6900, and that RDNA 2,
Mhm.
because that actually made it into laptops. Now, let's be honest, those didn't sell very well. They are hard to find. Okay, even if you go on to you know, Newegg or Amazon, you really kind of, for a gaming laptop that's AMD, like Radeon graphics, it's a chore. They're not readily available. Okay,
Yeah.
they never sold as high volume. But with this splitting of the drivers, the problem that you're running into is if you have a Ryzen um, CPU with an onboard, typically a 600 or a 610 or a 660M, you also then have a separate driver for the 6800M.
Mhm.
The problem is that for these, they are separate chips, but the graphics are being routed through your onboard through the onboard graphics.
Mhm.
And so there are games out there that are doing versioning checks, and what's happening is that they're picking up the version of the GPU, the iGPU, and saying this isn't current, even though your dedicated GPU, which is doing all of the actual grunt work, can actually work, and it just feeding it as a pass through the integrated. It's actually crashing and not starting. And then, like, we were trying to get this laptop to play Battlefield, and it wouldn't, because you could, technically speaking, but it was so slow because you had to disable the onboard graphics, and it just totally, really just jacked up this. And it's all because of the versioning that they have here. And the problem that we're looking at here is the fix is either AMD fixes their stuff and their drivers and stops doing dumb things. Uh,
Mhm.
Two, um, game developers are realize could realize, oh, that's actually what's happening, and relax that requirement and to
Yep.
allow it to do the pass through. Um, you could see some support possibly from the manufacturers, but again, if you have a 6800M, I don't think manufacturers are going to be putting a lot of work into that, only because they would love for you to buy a new laptop. And so you've got these laptops that are effectively more or less kind of dead, um, at least in some respect. So you know, again, coming back to this, people need to realize there's a lot of devices with these older, Ryzen and Zen and Radeon packages, and some of these devices, and like for right now, I would not be buying a Zen 2 based laptop.
Mhm.
That would probably be something that I would not, on the used market. You probably could find a cheap deal on them. In fact, they were always viewed as less expensive. I mean, you could buy a 6800M laptop used, I would guess, in the 400, and at that performance, that was really good. It
Hmm.
wasn't a
Yeah.
bad graphics card. Um, Now that we have the driver problems, it's not something I would recommend even considering.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I haven't tried anything with my laptop because it's a 5800HX with the APU, and it also has the 3080M in it. So I'm wondering
now
if games are going to pick that up and be like, I can't run because
I don't think I do believe this is a Radeon only issue.
okay.
I do not think that this crosses over to the Nvidia because it's a different. Yeah, I don't think they're doing the exact. I don't think they're doing the same thing on the Nvidia side. I think
Yeah.
on the Radeon side they were saying, "Oh, well, we can boost the performance," and that's exactly what was going on.
Mm,
Yeah, I believe, but
gotcha.
um,
Yeah,
I at this
because the
point just be
display output on mine routes the NVIDIA card through the CPU before it hits display output. So that's how pretty much all the switchable graphics does. Um, but yeah, that's actually kind of a concern for me now is if that might happen, and that's something I'll have to test, and
well.
if I get a chance to let everybody know.
The other thing is that this could pose a problem for any Intel based if they're doing that
Mm,
same thing. If
yeah.
Intel stops doing support for ARC as they're moving over to GeForce, you could have a similar problem if they're not going to support those ARC cards anymore.
Hmm.
So this is where you need to push, AMD and Intel and NVIDIA to really support even older hardware, even if just keeping the versioning up to date so you understand what you can and can't do.
Yep.
So um,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of interesting. We'll see how that kind of transpires, but at this point, it would be a no buy for me
Yeah.
on RDNA 2 at this point. Uh, okay, and last thing, um, we talked a little bit earlier about RAM becoming expensive, SSDs becoming expensive, um, and in line with those, we are seeing some increases in GPU pricing. For the longest time, you could buy MSRP, both the 9000 series from AMD and 5000. I mean, there were multiple 5090s you could actually buy at 1999.
Yep.
There were multiple 5080s you could buy at 1000. And so, but we're hearing that October we had a small price increase on the Radeon side for the 9000 series, and now we're hearing that there's going to be another price increase specifically now for the increased VRAM cost. So, well, now graphics cards are going to be a little bit more expensive. I don't know how much more it is because we're only talking 16 or 24, how much, and it'll be interesting to see if maybe a 5090 sees a smaller increase because it has more VRAM.
Mhm.
Um, but then the other piece of this is if you were either a building or two uh, looking for anything with storage, whether that's VRAM or SSDs or RAM, um, you best be looking at trying to buy something sooner than later.
Yep.
This shortage is not going to go away. It's not going to get better. In fact, it's going to get worse because the honest truth is that the manufacturers for are realizing, hey, I can sell and make more profit margins to the AI side of things than I can retail. And
Mhm.
so the manufacturing is getting shifted. The problem is that it's the manufacturing because the consumer and uh, the business side is not the same design layout, or really it's the same machines, but it's not the same. You can't just throw GDDR7 into it. Oftentimes you've got modifications. So
Yep.
it will be this is going to be a change, and anyone who needs to be buying anything with RAM in it, the honest truth is I was looking at, like, if I could find a cheap kit just to have as backup, I might want to do it. But now you can't get anything 32 gigs for less than $200. Now, $200 might be a good deal here in 5 or 6 months, because it might be looking at, with the percentages that have gone up, man, it's expensive. It's really expensive. So if you're on that bandwagon of wanting to buy a graphics card, a memory upgrade, an SSD, now is absolutely the time to be doing that. I don't think we will see any, or I think we will see very limited Black Friday SSD sales. But if you see a sale, even if it's more expensive than it is, you just got to keep in mind that right now those kits are going to be expensive.
Yep. They're going through the roof, and it doesn't look like supply is really going to improve anytime soon. So, I mean, that might actually bode fairly poorly for the 50 Super Series too,
Yeah,
because it could potentially end up derailing that if they can't get the 3 gig chips, because that seems to be what all of the AI vendors are going after, is the 3 gig chips.
yeah, because that's
So
how they're going to get the volume of the VRAM, and that's the biggest deal with them. So,
yeah,
2 gigs not going to do it. Really three. And the problem is the Super Series depended upon that 33% bump of being able to remove 2 gig chips and put on threes.
hmm
Um, and that's why these memory configurations are increasing by 33%, because they're taking the same number of chips and they're just increasing the capacity. They don't have the ability to just slap it on a double stack it. Now, it might be interesting to see if possibly there's a rework where you have a clamshell design where they double some system memory,
hmm.
and they continue to use 2 gig chips because that would be cheap. Could we see a 5080 Super that goes from 16 to 32?
Yeah,
Yes. It would have to be them putting that other side and then under the back plate. You could technically do that.
they'd have to put a
Um,
5080 chip on a 5090 board effectively, which is theoretically
or
possible, but
or or do the
double stack.
clamshell and put RAM on both sides.
Right. Well,
Um,
that's what the 5090 does. Yeah, the 5090 has the memory on both sides of the card, and 5080 has it just on the rear. But yeah, that's
if the pricing becomes an issue and they really don't get access to the 3 gig chips, that could spell the death of the 5080 Super. The other half of this is, this shortage, I don't think is a short term issue, which is
yeah.
why I say, um, people may, you got to be aware of what you've got, because replacing these NVMEs or RAM kits not going to be free or cheap.
Nope.
Especially, I mean, I'm looking on, and and there's some decent kits in here, but like the cheap stuff that you used to, like the one you would always get was the G Skill Flare
hmm
X5, and those you could buy for a 32 gig kit was like 79, $80.
hmm
They now sell for 200.
Yep.
Um, so really expensive. We've seen more than double. Um, I don't know if I don't know. I mean, that's the honest. The question is where does pricing really go from here? Um, I don't know, and I thought maybe that we might see like higher speeds less effective, but I don't see that being really the case here.
Yeah.
The speeds they just don't care.
Yep.
There are some kits that are a little bit more what should I say, value focused. So, like here's a G Skill Trident 7600, 32 gig kick, so 216s for 249, whereas the 6000 is 200. That's still a 25% bump to go from a 6000 to a 7600.
Yeah.
But considering that you still have 6000 based chips that are selling for $250, $300 plus, that 7600 is not actually half bad if you have a board that'll support higher memory clocking.
Right.
So
right.
Keep an eye out and look for deals. And if you're doing an upgrade, it very well might be that you possibly sit back and hold on to your old stuff because you might be able to sell it for more and cover the cost, especially if pricing continues to go up.
Yep. And the used market is probably going to be the place where a lot of people make up a lot of that difference too. Because, I mean, people are going to start asking premiums for memory and for NVMe storage. Now, storage, I don't know that I would want to buy that used from somebody random. But when it comes to just plain old RAM, sure, that's kind of hard to kill these days.
I mean, the interesting thing is, and I'll say this, like the used market for graphics cards, really kind of interesting. It was really, really expensive when nobody could buy them and people were paying just a lot of money and they were moving. Like you were seeing posts and you were seeing posts going away. So I would assume, one would guess, that they've sold. And then you could start, the prices came down and they weren't selling very well. And graphics cards even today aren't selling very well. I think it's because most people who want a graphics card have a graphics card. Now, with that being said, if you go and look at graphics cards, I have the thinking that people still aren't buying graphics cards. And so this will be interesting because if the cost of the new graphics cards go up, will we see some uptick in the used market? And I would say probably not. I mean, I'm looking here. Here's a 7900 XTX with 24 gigs GDDR6 for $750. I still think that's probably a little high, even for that card, with the lack of support and what you're going to get out of it. But like, here's a 4080 Super selling for $800. That's a good. That's a decent price for a Super. So it might be that you really kind of push into this the used market maybe more than anything else. I mean, there are deals for sure to be had. I mean, here's a 4070 Ti for $550. And that's has seen multiple price drops, and it's been listed for 7 weeks. So these cards are not selling well. If I'm looking at needing a graphics card, I would probably be looking on the used marketplace more than anything else.
Well, and if you're a scalper too, the used marketplace sounds like it's going to be a good place to place a couple bets and just stash the cards off in a shelf somewhere and pull them out when the prices go nuts, because you could do some serious profit taking.
So if you're looking at graphics cards, I would look at the used marketplace because I think that's where you're going to find the best bang for your buck. NVMEs, I'm seeing some decent deals. So, like, here's a 2 terabyte NVMe Gen 4, 7,000 megabytes per second for $100.
Okay.
That's a fairly decent deal. Here's a 4 terabyte 990 Samsung 990 Pro for $250. Again, that's a decent price for what it is.
Yeah.
So there are some decent ones out there, but the DDR5, that is where you're not going to find if you have them locally, you may want to be jumping on those.
Yeah. For sure.
Because in all honesty, I think these are going to be the ones that are going to tick up. And obviously we've seen those continue to tick up. And for me, I don't have anything close by. I mean, I have nothing close to jump into and
that has any stock. Yeah.
Yeah. Or even on the used marketplace. Like if you were to buy it used, it's not available. You can find a lot of DDR4. So
yeah, and DDR4 prices on the new side are going through the roof because that's kind of end of life at this point. It's nobody's making new boards with DDR4 support. So, as that supply starts dwindling, we're going to see that going through the roof too. So, yeah, I think on that bombshell, we will call it a show for this evening. So thank you all for giving us a little bit of your time. And until next time, have fun storming the castle.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.